Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're continuing our look at the Legions themed decks and we're moving on to look at Morph Mayhem, which is a white and blue deck, and I'm probably certain you can guess what the theme is. So here we have the deck list. So we have 29 creatures, 2 instants, 3 enchantments, 26 lands. A lot of creatures, as is usually the way in these Legion themed decks, Legion being a set where all the new cards were only creatures, there was nothing else. But this is there's a compromise in that a lot of the creatures have usually like enter the battlefield effects or effects that happen when they are turned face up, which is a big theme in this deck as it deals with morph. So let's start looking at some of these morph creatures. So, as I said, obviously big theme of the deck is morph. If you're new to the game and you don't know what morph is an ability that at this time it's only creatures, but in future sets it does get played around with that other cards have morph. But we'll cover those when we get to them, mostly in Khans of Tarkir. So morph means you can play the creature face down as a 2/2 creature. It basically has no color or type for 3 generic mana, and then you can at any time you can pay the morph cost to flip it face up. And what this deck has is a lot of creatures that have effects when they are flipped face up. Yeah, I think there was a lot of kind of doubt about morph when it was first introduced. I think a lot of players were like, "Oh, like you're turning Magic into Yu-Gi-Oh!" and like, "Oh, I don't like it." But I think morph has gone on to be like a real like favorite in the community. I think it's a really fun mechanic. Like it creates these kind of like mind games of like this sense of mystery that you can put cards face down and like, oh, opponent doesn't know what they are. Like, is it safe to attack to? Like, can you morph it at instant speed and it's going to be like a huge block or it's going to have effect? I think it's really fun. But yeah, let's look at these creatures. So we have 2 Ascending Avens. That's 4 mana for a 3/2 fly. It can only block creatures with flying. That's not too exciting, but that's from the previous set before they started playing around with morph. So we have a single Master of the Veil. This is 4 mana for I've covered up the power and toughness. I'm so clever. I think it's a 2/2. When it gets turned face up, you can turn a creature that has morph face down, which is fun because it means you can reset your own stuff with morph, or you can reset your opponent's creatures with morph. Say, because there's a lot of kind of like big creatures that opponents can play face down early. And they're 2/2s, and then later on when they've got the mana, they can flip over and just like, aha, this was a 7/7 the whole time, and I couldn't afford to. I didn't want to hold it into my hand this whole time. Want it on the board. So yeah, being able to reset something back down to being a 2/2 with no color or type is like fairly significant. Because it makes obviously a creature much weaker and easier to deal with. And I say it has utility in this that it can reset your own stuff, which has morph abilities like Voidmade Apprentice, which is 2 mana for a 1/1. You can morph it for 4 mana when it's turned face up. You counter a spell. Echo Tracer is a 2/2 for 3. When it's turned face up from morph, it bounces something. And Willbender is my favorite actually out of all of them. 2 mana for a 1/2. When it is turned face up, it changes the target of a spell or ability, which is really, really fun. The downside is that I remember at the time, like people like really liked Willbender more than like quite a lot of the others. So like Willbender would be the only morph creature they would be using. So like there was no surprise as to what the morph creature was. Like going, you'll never guess what my face down creature is. Like, is it Willbender? Like maybe, and yeah, it always inevitably was because it was the best one. So a few more blue morph creatures here. So we have Wall of Deceit, which is 2 mana for a 0/5 wall, so it can't attack, but you can pay 3 to turn it back face down, so then it can attack, which I think is quite fun. It can turn itself face down, and there's always a chance that an opponent forgets that's been turned face down, they attack into it, and you flip it face up because it's got a really cheap morph cost, and like, it's actually a 0/5 defender, you forgot about it, which is potentially quite fun. I have a single Image Crafter, who's a 1/1 for 1. He can tap to change a creature's type, which is, I'm not sure why he's in here, honestly. He doesn't seem to mesh with what the deck's kind of gimmick is, because like Onslaught Block is has tribal as its main gimmick. So normally Image Crafter is like quite good because like he can switch off opponent's creatures. He can change their types around so maybe they don't benefit from tribal effects, or it's a way of kind of like including maybe an off-tribe creature in your deck, and then he changes their type and lets them benefit from this, that kind of thing. Not sure what he's doing here. I feel like this is, he's kind of here maybe just to fill space a little bit. Not saying he wouldn't have like some utility, but I don't know. It just doesn't really mesh, I don't think, with what the deck's really trying to do. And then we have a single Mistform Mutant. Like Image Crafter, it can change creature types, but is a 3/4 for 6, which is very expensive. Yeah. Again, not really sure why Mistform Mutant's here. And then the two rares of the deck. So one of them is Chrome Shell Crab, who's great. I love Chrome Shell Crab. So 5 mana for a 3/3. Morph it for what is that? 5? Yeah. And when it gets turned face up, you exchange control of a creature you control with a creature an opponent controls. So I suppose that's actually used for Image Crafter to like swap him away for something better. That's quite fun. I like that switching control of creatures. Pretty fun effect. And then Weaver of Lies. So this is kind of a grown-up version of Master of the Veil. So 7 mana for a 4/4, but you're never going to hardcast him because even casting with Morph and then flipping him face up it works out the same, I think. No, 1 mana more to do that, but you'd never hardcast him just as a 4/4 for 7 that does nothing else. So when he's turned to face up, you can turn any number of target creature with Morph other than himself face down. So just kind of can reset all your Morph stuff and opponent's Morph stuff. Yeah, kind of a niche effect. But at least it's like on the theme and fits the gimmick. Yeah, I think Weaver Lies is okay. Then we have some white morph creatures. Daru Mender, just 1/1 for 1. When it's turned face up, you regenerate a creature. It's fine, stop it from dying. Iron Fist Crusher, kind of expensive, 5 mana for a 2/4. It can block any number of creatures though, which like makes it sort of a good combat trick. If it's face down, opponent types a load of creatures, you unmorph it, you block everything, and that's fine. Liege of the Axe, 4 mana for a 2/3 with Vigilance. And when it is morphed, it's you untap it, which is okay. I kind of wish that effect was really like untap a creature you control, just to give it a bit more utility, because really that's quite a niche ability, because ideally all you're doing with it is going to attack with it while it's a 2/2, face down, someone attacks, and be like, I'm going to get through, you pay the morph cost, flip him face up, he untaps, and then like you block. There's that can happen. That is obviously the intended effect, but it is it's not as useful, I don't think, as a morph ability. And then Wingbeat Warrior, 3 mana for a 2/1 flyer. When he's morphed, creature gets first strike turn. So that's okay. Kind of wish again it maybe gave like a power and toughness boost, like +1/+1 on first strike. That would have been fine as well. That's kind of a weak effect for a morph effect. I mean, not saying like giving first strike is a bad effect. It can obviously be really good both offensively and defensively, but it's still like kind of expensive morph cost for quite a minor effect, really. And then we have a Daru Lancer. He's just 6 mana for a 3/4 with first strike. He's got morph as well. Just pretty boring, honestly. Obviously, very expensive to hardcast. Like 6 mana is a lot to pay just for a 3/4 first strike. So this is one you would want to kind of do over 2 turns, really. I think over 2 turns it's fine to get him down on turn 3, and then turn 4 flip him up, and then you can attack with 3/4 first strike. I think that's obviously much better. And then a single Whipcorder, 2 white mana for a 2/2. Pay 1 white, tap target creature, and has again a very cheap morph cost. Yeah, I like Whipcorder. I like creatures, these white creatures with like tap down effects. It's always very, very good to lock, get an opponent's blocker out of the way or stop a big attacker, that kind of thing. Yeah, I like Whipcorder. Also is weirdly a rebel, and I have no idea why. But if you're running Mercadian Masks card, you can recruit Whipcorder into your rebels. And then weirdly, we just have like this very tiny Provoke theme. So Provoke um, is an ability I kind of wish came back because I actually quite like it. So Provoke is an ability of whenever the creature with Provoke attacks, you can untap a creature the defending player controls, and it has to block the Provoker. So it's kind of like a lure effect that like an opponent that a creature can't get away from because they get untapped, so they have to block. Yeah, I quite like it. It's fine. It's fine. But yeah, so Deathblade Elite, I remember really liking Deathblade Elite. So it's 1 mana for a 1/1, has Provoke, and then has the ability where you pay 2, prevent all combat damage that he would take or deal that turn, which I think is pretty good. It means you can obviously lure away a big enemy creature, pay 2, and he's absolutely fine. And you've like tied up one of their blockers. Swooping Talon is kind of trying to do the same. It's very expensive though, 6 mana for a 2/6 flyer. But you can pay 1 so it loses flying turn, which means it can then provoke in non-flying creatures, which I think is like okay, but it's very expensive for what it does. I think just Deathblade Elite does a much better job of it. Yeah, because like giving an evasion ability to a creature with a provoke actually makes provoke worse because you're limited in then what creature can be forced to block it. So yeah, just Deathblade Elite is the better of the two. And then just 2 other creatures. I feel these are just to fill out space. So a single Aven Redeemer who's just 2/2 flyer, taps to prevent 2 damage to a creature or player. Yeah, fine, just kind of boring. And then a full playset of Glory Seeker. It's just 2 mana for a 2/2. It's just very boring. Full playset of them, but like this is something that it's not worth getting excited about having a playset of these. It's just a bear. This might be, I think, White's first bear, like just a 2/2 for 2 with no like downside or abilities or anything. But yeah, that's kind of not worth celebrating, honestly. This definitely could have been something else, which we'll talk about in the the what could have been section. So then moving on to spells, which there aren't many of because most of the space in the deck is taken by creatures. So we have a single improvised armor, 4 mana aura, in charge of creatures +2/+5, and it has cycling for 3. Yeah, it's obviously it makes something very, very tanky. There's a few creatures in here that would go well on. Iron Fist Crusher and I guess Deathblade Elite are ones that spring to mind the most. Yeah, but it's still kind of like a little bit expensive, I think, like at 4 mana. It has cycling at least, so if you really want to, you could just cycle it away and draw a card. And then a couple of pacifisms. We know pacifism. It's just, very, very cheap for like I think a very good effect, just to essentially lock a creature out of the game. Singular Chrome's Blessing. This shows up in pretty much every white Onslaught theme deck, honestly, for good reason. I think it's very good. 3 mana instant gives creatures you control protection from the color of your choice until turn. Yeah, and it's very good. One thing that I've actually not mentioned in previous ones is that this does nothing to stop like morph creatures, because morph creatures are colorless. So no matter what you pick for this, like face down creatures could still like block your stuff if you're using this to try and get your stuff through on like a stalled board, or if like opponent was attacking a load of stuff and had face down creatures, like you still can't get protection from colorless creatures. But most of the time this is like really, really good. And it has cycling if you wanted to cycle it. And a single counterspell, Discombobulate. 2 mana and 2 blue for a counter target spell. And then look at the top 4 cards of your library and rearrange them. It's alright. Yeah, not much to say. Just kind of like rearranging the top 4 is kind of a weak effect, honestly. But it's better than nothing. Yeah. And then we have 2 Lonely Sandbar and 2 Secluded Steps, just cycling lands, which always nice to see them in a theme deck though. So what could have been? So I'm going to go really left field here, which I haven't done for a while in these what could have beens. Is I'm just going to propose a whole third color should have been added to this deck. So first, let's talk about the on color ones. So backslide is a spell that resets morph creatures. Just turns them face down, and it has cycling. Could have had a few of them in here. And Planar Guide could have been one of the rares, I guess. So this is a guy. He's a 1/1 for one. And he's got an ability where he basically blinks the whole board. Like everything gets exiled and then comes back in end of turn, which interacts very well with Morph, because when a morphed creature gets exiled, it's then turned face up. So then when it returns to the battlefield, it comes back in face up. Which now that I think about it, doesn't have great synergy with the deck, because all your things are reliant on being turned face up with their morph cost. Ignore Planar Guide. I put it in here thinking it would have decent synergy, but it actually doesn't. So then that makes what I'm gonna say actually more relevant. In that, I think we should have had a third color. I think could have added some red in here, made it a bit more interesting, because there's quite a few red creatures which have good morph abilities. So Skirt Commando is a goblin that when it attacks, when it does damage to a player, it can also do damage to a creature. So that's something that's fun, can sneak by morph, and then you unmorph it, and you get its effect. Skirk Marauder, when it gets turned face up, it does shock. Shaleskin Plow, when it gets turned face up, does Stone Rain. Warbreak Trumpeter, when it gets turned face up, makes a bunch of goblin tokens, potentially. And Rock Shard could have just been one of the other rares. It's just a big, just a big 4/3 like double striker. This being the first set where double strike is introduced, which is quite interesting and fun. I think this could have just been fun. You have like this big elemental, you sneak it past, and then you flip it face up, and bam, opponent takes 8 from a double striking Rockshard elemental. I just think bit of because we got the like. So in this onslaught block, there's 3 blue-white decks, and I just think adding a third color to it would have made it a bit more interesting, made it stand out a little bit more, and also like all the colors have these kind of like morph creatures that have effects. Like it seems a wasted opportunity not to kind of like show off more of them, but that's what I think. So in summary, I actually think I had this deck looking back on it, because I definitely remember owning Chrome Shell Crab and Weaver of Lies. I wouldn't have bought them on their own, so I definitely think I got this, but I think I disassembled it almost immediately to maybe just use the Will Benders or something else. So in summary, I think it's okay. I think it's like quite a fun gimmick actually to play around with like a load of morph creatures. I say just there's some cards in here which don't fit at all. Like I don't understand like the 4 Glory Seekers. That's just a very boring card to include. Really could have been something else. And like I think a third color could have really helped with that. Overall I think okay. But I think I've mentioned in a previous video, blue-white is my least favorite color combination, so I'm always going to be a little biased towards blue-white, I think. But that's just my thoughts. What were your thoughts after seeing the deck list of this theme deck? Did you like the look of it? Did you own it, and did you play it? Did you make changes to it? Stick a comment below. We'll have a talk about it. But I'll be back next time to look at another Legion's theme deck. But until then, thank you for watching and listening, and have a good day.